Yeah, so I think in this auction just before the IPL, there were quite a few important players who switched franchises for
Right.
whatever reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were some political reasons, there were some reasons of sort of career growth or whatever you might want to call it.
And since you are talking about IPL fans, and we know they're very, I shouldn't use the word rabid, but they are very enthusiastic.
Yes.
As of now, RCB just occupies that space.
Right.
So the weirdest thing is why they have never won. Because they've got everything going for them. They've had a spectacular team lineup. They've been doing well as far as team chemistry is concerned. They have a consistent branding, which has always been there since the very beginning. The performance has just not come through yet.
Hi everyone, glad you were able to join us for yet another podcast by Crisp Insights. We have an exciting topic for today. The same as last time, I hope you guys were able to watch our previous podcast. It's about IPL 2025. And joining me as always are my partners in crime. There's Tanmay Jaswal,
Hi.
Ritesh Ghoshal,
Aye.
and our associate and probably the biggest cricket buff among us, Mandeep.
Hello.
So guys, IPL is on. Is everybody on it? सब देख रहे हैं अच्छे से?
Yeah, I mean, getting into it, it's an interesting start to the season. Some surprises, some things that you would not have expected. So it's going to be an interesting season.
Okay, excellent. Listen, in market research, the first question always is, what were your first impressions? Spontaneously, क्या आ रहा है मन में? Let's discuss. Let's start with that. So who wants to go?
I think the games this year have been more interesting, more high scoring. I think the teams seem more balanced.
Okay.
But हाँ ये भी लगता है that bowlers are becoming less and less a part of the game. Hopefully as the season wears on, the pitches start turning and it gets warmer. Maybe the bowlers have a bigger role to play in the.
Right. Mandeep, what about you?
Early trend, after almost a decade, Punjab is back at the top of the table. And that's a very. All credit goes to the management, which in auction they purchased Shreyas Iyer, and who has a very good record as a captain.
Nice.
And last year with KKR, they won the IPL 2024.
Right.
No, I find that it's getting more and more difficult to keep track of the different teams because the composition has changed so much. But this auction has revealed quite a few surprising picks which have done well, and the teams that are doing well, I don't think you would have expected at the beginning of the tournament that they would be where they are.
So we do have some skin in the game here because of EDART. Hopefully our viewers were able to spend some time in our previous podcast and were able to find out more about what it's all about. What are the impressions coming out of EDART so far?
Yeah, I think before we talk about that, it's important to also highlight that EDART itself has changed a little bit since the last year.
Okay.
I think we took some of the learnings from the previous EDART to make some changes in design as well. So, for example, one of the major changes is that last time we had only gone to the catchment areas of all the teams and interviewed consumers from the catchment areas only.
Right.
But we recognize that IPL is actually a national pastime.
pan-India,
Yeah, pan India. So this time round we have gone to 60 cities. So the top 60 cities of India, we have gone and we have interviewed consumers from all the 60 cities. So that's one major change.
Yeah, and I think to the first impressions, the question you asked on this base, so 15 to 65-year-olds across 60 cities of India, 1 in 3 almost have watched the IPL yesterday. I think that's the size of the platform that we are talking about.
Yeah. So I think that's in line with some of the news reports that have come out as well, where they were mentioning that the season has started with a bang and viewership numbers have gone up. So we are actually seeing that being corroborated in the data that we have collected.
Yeah, and one of the main changes that had happened since last year was the composition of the teams. You know, players have moved around, and I'm sure EDAT is capturing how those changes are impacting, you know, viewership and how people are absorbing IPL this year. So, anything you want to highlight about the change in team compositions? How has that impacted performances and so on?
Yeah, so I think in this auction just before the IPL, there were quite a few important players who switched franchises for
Right.
whatever reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were some political reasons, there were some reasons of sort of career growth or whatever you might want to call it.
And some very public and some not
Some
so public.
Chemistry issues, let's call it.
Chemistry issues, yeah. And you would have expected that this would have an impact in terms of how fan followings of teams
Right.
change as well, because the composition of team loyalty is about what's my regional team, but also about which players do I follow.
Mm.
But surprisingly, what we have seen is that the roster of teams or the hierarchy of teams in terms of fan following hasn't changed that much.
Okay.
So if you see the top 4 teams that we saw in the last year's EDAT, they were Chennai, Bangalore, Calcutta, and
Mumbai Indians.
Mumbai Indians. Yeah. So that roster of 4 still continues to dominate.
So the roster of 4 had 80% plus of all fans saying this is my favorite team, and that
Right.
continues to be the same.
Right.
In fact, just picking up from where Tanmay left off, there are 3 broad reasons how people choose which team they want to belong to as fans.
Mm.
First is what you can call affiliations. My entire family follows this team, or all my friends follow this team. That is, or this team is my region. So regional, family, or friends. The affiliation is what drives your choice of team. Second big important factor is the player. My hero, my personal icon plays for this team, so mera team ban gaya. And the third factor is performance. Right. So teams which perform tend to go up in number of fans. Teams which have never performed, unfortunately Delhi being one of them, they don't end up with fans. Even if the team composition changes, the player composition changes, or maybe even if you win a couple of games, you don't suddenly start acquiring fans because it takes time to build as well.
So, taking off from that, if you see in this year, KKR has started off really well, and I
Right.
think the fans are rewarding KKR for their excellent performance in last year's IPL. So that has made an impact in terms of the number of people following KKR versus what was the case last year.
And since you are talking about IPL fans, and we know they're very, I shouldn't use the word rabid, but they are very enthusiastic.
Yes.
What drives their loyalties?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is to do with what Ritesh just said, which is affiliation, performance and player. So those are the sort of mix of 3 that I would say drives fan loyalty. But I mean, you would think that IPL fans are rabid, as you say, but if you compare it to some of the international sports that you see, whether it is football or even some of these American sports like American football
Or basketball, baseball,
and so
NHL.
on, people get really mad.
Right.
So I haven't seen that level
Yeah.
of.
So if you look at Shreyas Iyer moving, last year's winning captain, not retained by the franchise, there would have been howls of protest if he was a Man U captain or something. Same Rishabh Pant, Delhi boy, plays for Delhi in Ranji. Whatever fans he has, they're all from Delhi, but he's playing for Lucknow as the captain. There are no howls of protest. Why is Rishabh not being retained in Delhi?
So I think, I mean, it's a relatively new, even though it's the 18th season now, as a tournament, it is still
still growing.
relatively new versus the age-old rivalries of football in English Premier League, for example, or any other sport, ice hockey or basketball and so on, which is why you see generations of fans, the matlab Ghutti आपको जन्म से दी जाती है, that you are a Liverpool fan.
into
You're
a
born
Liverpool
into, you're
family.
born
And I
into
think
it.
that's a very interesting point, because if you look at the 4 teams we counted, who account for 80% plus of the fans, these
Yeah.
are the oldest unchanged teams.
Right.
So Hyderabad has had a name change, team change, owner change. So has Delhi, right? So has Punjab also, right? And Gujarat and Lucknow to start with are the newer entrants.
Yeah.
So longevity and consistency of promise, performance, whatever you want to call it, is a big factor. And probably it's time the franchises start paying attention to these kind of factors when they are entering the auctions, rather than just the balance of the team that you're trying to create.
Yeah, I think that is really important, because we have seen some of the moves that some of the franchises make, which don't seem to take that into account. In terms of letting go, let's say, a player who might have been contributing totally to the loyalty of the fan base, but they just let them go.
Yeah. True. If you look at how Chennai has built this entire persona around MSD,
Yeah.
right? For maybe 18 years now, right? There is a nickname for him. There are advertising they have created around him being Thala and stuff like that, right? That has really built Dhoni as CSK and CSK as Dhoni. It's an interesting problem what happens after Dhoni, but that's another conversation we can have someday. But while he's around, it's still CSK is the team to follow.
And the branding elements that go with that, so an iconic canary yellow uniform, and
Right.
those kind of things.
We actually associate Dhoni
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the yellow
yeah.
color now.
Correct. Yeah.
Also, RCB, though having never won the IPL, has maintained its core revolving around Virat Kohli and some interested star players like AB de Villiers and Chris Gayle. So, not only the performance is a factor, though CSK has won 5 times with Dhoni. So, we can also count as performance as a factor for CSK. But for RCB, it has always been around the players, and the loyalty of the fan base is connected to the players like Virat Kohli.
So actually, the only team where fans pick the way they play together as a factor on why they are following the team is RCB. You will find many going back to the parallel with football. There will be many teams fans who say this, I like the way these guys play as a team, okay, and that's why I am their fan. In the IPL system, there is only one team which today has a fan following, which says, I follow them because of the chemistry of the players or the way they come together as a team. I would think SRH is headed there, by the way, but as of now, RCB just occupies that space.
Right.
So the weirdest thing is why they have never won, because they've got everything going for them. They've had a spectacular team lineup. They have been doing well as far as team chemistry is concerned. They have a consistent branding, which has always been there since the very beginning. The performance has just not come through yet.
So just shifting gears a little bit, because we talked about fans and all. The other lens, of course, is looking at it from a brand's perspective.
Yeah.
So how have brands been tapping into all this enthusiasm about IPL and how the teams are performing? What do you think?
So I think, first things first, IPL is a big platform for all brands, right? And I think we are seeing more brands advertising on the IPL this year than at least last year, and we started tracking last year. And one of the ways brands seem to be adopting the IPL more so this year than earlier is it's like a media buy. If I want to create reach, if I want to to use the digital language, create impressions across the depth and width of the country, IPL is a great thing.
Right.
What I see much less of is, if you go back to the early years of the IPL when Vodafone created the entire concept of Zoos, and the IPL was not just the cricket, it was also a brand running a grand scale activation through the 70 days, building the brand, building customer acquisition
Through the
customer
line.
Use the
engagement,
length
through
and use the
line.
length of time. to
Through
do
the
it.
length of time,
Yeah.
right? Because one of the things which people don't always appreciate is the same guy who comes back and watches every day.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So it is not about. So if you're just thinking advertising, you are going to overexpose. Right. Beyond a certain number of OTS, it doesn't really add anything. right? In fact, people start cursing the brand, फिर वही आ गया, right? So Zuzu's really broke that for the entire length of time that they ran the program. Sadly, there is no brand doing that today. Maybe to some extent these fantasy sport apps are doing it, but honestly it's not as entertaining or as engaging, at least for me.
So you are saying that a lot of brands are just using this as a media vehicle,
As a media vehicle, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's like a missed opportunity, because if you are spending 50% of your annual budget on these 10 weeks and you are not doing full justice to the association that you are buying, then you've kind of
Well, that may be the other thing. I don't know if brands are spending 50% of the annual budget on the IPL anymore, because I think it is just my April-May campaign money coming to IPL, rather than this is my grand intent or grand plan for the year. There are many larger issues than cricket which might be driving why brands are not really investing in advertising or investing in launching new products or whatever. But I don't see a large campaign being mounted, and see this as a marketer. I don't see what is the brand's intent when they are advertising something on the IPL.
But that's interesting, because it's contrary to sort of the other piece of data that we are being told, which is advertising budgets overall, spends on IPL are actually going up year on year. So it does suggest that brands are investing more and more money on this particular property. But what you are saying is that that may still be a smaller component of what they are
Yeah,
what they are doing.
so here is the thing. Let me draw a parallel from the time I started my career as a media planner. Right, every brand's media plan would start with Hindi feature film and Chitrahar, because these were your reach builders, and then you would start putting in whatever else around it. Now, if you see, media is far more fragmented. IPL goes to every home, right? Even the guy who says I'm disengaged, I'm not particularly interested in the IPL, वो फिर भी 15 दिन में एक मैच देख लेता है. Okay, so over the course of the IPL, I will reach everyone in the country as a brand. So purely as a reach builder, it is beyond parallel. There is no other option today, and probably the need for options is that much more, because even the music and the feature film space is very fragmented today.
So I wanted to pick on that point which you had mentioned about fantasy sports brands. Are you saying that they are somehow doing something right which other brands could also emulate?
Yeah, so in their case, their product itself is activation of the IPL, right? In a sense,
Right.
So whether they want it or not, they are activating the IPL. Then beyond that, what they are doing right is fan of the game, winner of the game, size of the prize, make your team. There are a lot of things where the game, while it is live, is interacting with the people who are following the fantasy apps, and the fantasy app is again and again popping into your frame of mind. That said, less than a quarter of the people actually are interested in fantasy games.
So that's interesting, because despite the fact that less than a quarter are interested in that category per se, the recall, as we are seeing from EDART, of these fantasy fantasy sport brands is multiple times the next category, right? So while you are right that the way they are structured, the product that they are selling is so intertwined with the IPL that you end up doing an integrated thing with the property.
Connect.
Yeah. But I think there is still a lost opportunity for some of the other brands who are in other categories, in the way they can dovetail their messaging with the vehicle that they are using.
True.
And I don't think there is any other brand in any other category which is truly capitalizing on their association with IPL.
No, that I think is absolutely true, right? I mean, for instance, if you look at Tata New, right? If I were playing a game on loyalty points, which is what their campaign seems to be, I would definitely try and put some kind of multiplier into what happens if when you're watching the game, or you do a quiz around the game or something, or for that matter the RuPay credit card business, right? I just don't see brands working hard enough to leverage this opportunity to move the conversation forward with the super fan of the IPL.
And that is reflecting in the kind of recall that we are seeing for the other brands.
True.
Who may have been spending pretty much the same amount, but are not getting a commensurate
Absolutely.
impact.
True. In fact, there is one other pattern that I wanted to pick up. See, with advertising being fragmented across more brands, more copies, being present and visible in live cricket seems to be more noticeable now, right? So, brands like Seat, okay, I don't think they are advertising, but they are one of the most recalled brands,
Yeah.
and they are because it's the strategic timeout. It is
Yeah.
there on the screen, live game.
Right.
Even the fantasy sports apps actually benefit a lot from being in the live cricket, in the live feed while the game is on. A brand like BKT, which a lot of people may not even know what category it operates in, is again a very highly recalled brand because it's there on the back of so many of the
teams,
team
yeah.
players.
Any other categories of brands you might want to highlight as somebody who's doing well in the IPL according to our data?
Yeah, so our data, the two categories that really jump up are fantasy sports
Right.
and tires. And I think to a large extent, as Ritesh said, the way tires are also making their mark is largely on account of interaction in the live feed, which I think as a learning for the brands, when you are deciding the allocations that you have, in terms of what you are doing for team sponsorship, what you are doing for uniform sponsorship, what you are doing for spot buys, what you are doing for packages, what you are doing for a negotiated kind of segment within the live feed, then it is probably quite important for you to err on the side of being associated with the match itself, because then the impact seems to come through, and your value for money is likely to be far greater than if you were to just do spot buys or package buys.
Yeah. On the flip side, there's also a thing. See, because being visible in the live feed, solves one huge problem, which is you are visible. But what does that presence translate into? So, like I took the example of BKT, you can say the same thing about Seat as well. What is Seat's proposition today? What is the new product in the category, or what is their product for the category of cars that are selling? I think that's an incomplete piece that they're left by being only on the live feed and not being there in advertising, right? So, for instance, BKT, now that you have told 1/3 of India that you exist by being on the the backside of people's T-shirts, what is it that you make? Wouldn't that be the next logical question for the brand to answer?
Yeah, so I think that's a very fair point, and it really is therefore about what stage of your or engagement with consumer you are in, right? So if let's say you are a hugely established brand, then the importance of some of these properties is lower for you, because your reach is already massive, and you are already present in everybody's lives and so on. But if you are a brand which is trying to make a mark, then engaging with the property to get maximum reach and exposure
It's a good
is a
idea.
very good idea.
Is an end itself.
Yeah, is an end in itself. So if only I would have thought that if I were BKT, I would dimensionalize my messaging not just by being on the uniform of the
Yeah, so
of
it
the
really
teams.
comes back to allocation. So let's take the flip side also. I think Parley as a brand is paying, spending a lot of money on advertising. Okay, but they are not getting commensurate recall. Okay.
Right.
Maybe it makes sense for them to have also taken some property, on live feed, because that seems to be working so well. Flip side, like Tanmay just said, BKT, it makes sense for them to take, maybe not sponsor 8 teams, but bring it down to 6 teams and put some money into advertising, which says, this is who we are and this is what we do.
Yeah.
So, just shifting gears a little bit, the viewership numbers have gone up. Whatever the reports that I was reading, had big numbers in terms of growth. Are we seeing the same kind of enthusiasm in our data?
Yeah, so it's early days yet. I mean, we are only reporting out the first week of IPL,
Right.
but definitely in that first week, we are seeing a higher viewership than we saw last year.
But I also think, you know, since both the you know the OTT kind of numbers are showing a rise and television viewership is showing a rise, my hunch looking at our data, because we see a lot of, you know, duality. The same guy is watching via mobile on an OTT app as well as on television.
Right.
So, I think that might be one of the big dynamics which is driving the reported viewership numbers for both of them.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about super fans in our last podcast. How is that enthusiasm going?
I think that's exactly where it was. And I think, you know, I would say the quality of games have been better. We have seen, you know, 275 being crossed for the first time, I think, in the IPL, or maybe the second time. And the team chasing also almost made it to 250, right? That's the kind of thing, you know, that really keeps the fan going. I think more close games across the tournament, more you will have, you know, the fan base growing.
Right.
Like I said, at this point in time, 4 teams command most of the fans.
I feel bad for the Rishabh Pant fans out there.
But you know, it's surprising how well LSG is coming together. Let's watch this space. You never know where they'll end up, you know, at the end of it.
Yeah. So we've now been 2 weeks into the IPL. What would be the reasons for brands to be going after our EDART report, even though it's like 2 weeks in?
Yeah, so I think EDART, is all about giving a sense of whether your investment in IPL is working or not, right? And what we are doing is we are releasing a weekly update, and we are also at the end of the IPL, we are also going to consolidate all the learnings and give a consolidated report around how IPL worked for, you know, let's say a specific brand. So we would very much like to invite brands to invest in this, because there is no other comparable study which is able to tell you what IPL is doing for your investment.
Yeah, I think, you know, IPL, the rate at which brands need to buy even, you know, one spot in the IPL, it will always, you know, be classified as a strategic buy rather than a, you know, filler in the media budget, right? And therefore, it becomes important to know what did it give me, right? What is the impact of it on my relationship with my consumers, right? Recall, of course, is the starting point, but then next comes impact. Do people think more of me, better of me? Are they more likely to purchase me? You know, those are the questions that people will find answers to in our report.
In addition to that, you know, we are still able to incorporate custom questions. So,
Right.
if let's say brands do come in and they want to ask something specific for their own brand, then that's also something we can incorporate. Of course, as we reach the midpoint of the tournament, the sample sizes will become too small for them to be able to do that. So the earlier they get in, the better it's going to be for them.
So, what is the right way to subscribe to an EDART report? Can you tell our viewers?
So we have a website, and you can just send us your inquiries, and we will also put in our contact details at the end of this video and in the comments. So you are we very much look forward to people reaching out on email, phone, website, whichever way, and we can definitely make it a much better assessment for you as far as your IPL investment is concerned.
Any parting last thoughts on IPL? It's the last ball being bowled. What would you have to? Anything you would want to say?
So IPL 24 top 10 fan favorites players have switched the places, and finally Virat Kohli has overtaken Dhoni in after a period of 18 years. So
Okay.
that is also an insight coming from the EDAT report.
So Dhoni has always been a great chaser.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry, but
Virat
you know,
Kohli has-
Virat Kohli
Virat
is the
has
second
been-
innings hero. Yeah.
Right, right. No, but this is a big change, right? You know, like somebody like Virat, of course, it had to be Virat, but for somebody to dislodge Dhoni from the #1 spot is big news.
See, I think that is also to do with the fact that there's not too much exposure of Dhoni anymore
Right.
because he's
Yes.
dusted
So
and
that
brought
helps.
out.
That helps. Also, Virat had a great
And
year.
Virat
last
had a
year.
great,
Had a great innings,
Champions
yes.
and World Cup and whatever. So I think that's the other bit that subscribers can look forward to, which is being able to keep track of players' fan followings, and then on that basis pick and choose what kind of players you want in your communication and latch on to.
Any last ball sixers from you, Ritesh? Yeah? No?
I've always been a Virat fan. I'm rooting for RCB this year. Hopefully, this is the year when we will see them win.
Well, if you see the top of the table, the 3 teams that have never won are at the top. So it's going well for the
We might get a new winner this season.
Yeah, let's see. So guys, that was our podcast for today. I hope you found it interesting. Our details would be in the listings below, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next podcast. Until then, stay crisp. Bye bye.
Bye.